CCTV has been forced to, there's lots to get to, let's get to it. They've been forced to report on the skies. Every day now I go outside and I look up and I think, do other people not look up? What is happening? In fact, I put a contrast of the Windows 95 or the Windows XP screen on the what's it called, the thumbnail today, and this sky looks very sad. And I mean, it's a sunset. This sky is a sunset, and the Windows XP is like full sun afternoon type deal. But it's the clouds and the shape of the clouds in the sky that really kind of make me question. And of course, this is saying, don't worry, everything's just fine. That's totally normal. You're seeing things. You're being crazy. Don't listen to your crazy uncle. That's what they're basically trying to convince you in this piece. So this was published yesterday, March 12th, 2024. And it says, we've all seen those white streaks trailing in the sky. Sorry, trailing behind jets, creating stripes against the blue sky. Is that a blue sky? It's kind of soupy. The lines are called contrails. Oh, are they? Short for condensation trails, and they appear when water vapor condenses and freezes around exhaust from an aircraft, according to the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research. At least that's what science says, and they link to this article. And this is the Science-y science article that they've linked to. Science in the US are flying planes into clouds to make it snow more. So that's different than what this is claiming, right? This is saying that's contrails, short for condensation trails. They appear when water vapor condenses and freezes around the exhaust from an aircraft. But these guys are flying into clouds to make it snow more. Really, really wild stuff. They're trying to normalize this. They're trying to say nothing to worry about. Go back to sleep. Everything's fine. We've got this. We know what those are. And they're not what you think they are. Definitely not. But here is a YouTube video from 1916, and this tells the story. It's 11 minutes. This tells the story of a guy who was paid to, his name was Charles Hatfield, and he was paid in 1916 to make rain. And it is a super interesting little mini documentary, 11 minutes long, and totally worthwhile. Link is in the description, talking about how this guy made rain, figured out, well, the claims are that he figured out how to do this, and he was reliably able to do this when others in the same era, they were trying to do this. Some had success in different regions of the United States. You couldn't travel as far then as you can now, right? But by and large, most of them failed. A few had success, and this guy created a crazy, crazy rainstorm, according to this story. And so by injecting things into the clouds. So don't worry about these scary looking skies. Don't look into it at all. Everything's fine. We've got you, right? The government. I don't believe anything the government says. It's very, very interesting to me that CTV has to run this kind of debunking campaign, because it's actually not debunking anything at all. It says, holy smoke, people are noticing. We've got to deal with that noticing, right? How dare you notice? Stop noticing. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Go back to sleep. So very, very concerning. Lots of noticing going on. And go watch that documentary. It's well beyond the scope of today's show, but you should go watch this documentary. It's totally worthwhile. 11 minutes. In double speed, it's like 5 minutes. No problem. Okay, let's get started. We got to talk about censorship. Censorship is the big bad in this season of humanity. And Tucker Carlson says, in a classified briefing this afternoon, attended by officials from the Biden Justice Department, AOC Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez claimed that Elon committed election interference in 2022 by changing the algorithms. Oh no, he changed the algorithms on X to alter the results of the midterms that year. Not coincidentally, the anti-TikTok legislation now being debated on the Hill would allow the federal government to force the sale of any social media platform that intervenes or interferes in elections, just so you know what's coming in 2025. So if you report on news or allow people to have free speech, they're coming for you. They will make you sell your asset. Elon Musk says, actually, I made the algorithm open source and neutral to all parties, but of course, that is election interference by her standards. So he's going to fight this, obviously, and he's done it in such a way that he can defend himself, maybe. But I mean, if there's a kangaroo court and they're coming for you, you could have an ironclad defense. Like, here are 10 witnesses that put me somewhere other than the scene of the crime, and you'll get railroaded anyway, right? Arif Varini is responding to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is saying, this is insane, and he's responding to Canadian law would allow judges to hand down life sentences for speech crimes. No, this isn't a joke. So within that context, our justice minister responds to Elon, and he says, it looks like you agree that we have a responsibility to protect free expression by stopping the worst kind of hate speech. The article you shared is misleading. I'd be happy to discuss our legislation and how X can work with us to help keep kids safe to stop hatred and to stop hatred. And he's highlighting a policy in X that says, we recognize that if people experience abuse on X, it can jeopardize their ability to express themselves. Jeopardizing somebody's ability to express themselves does not need to have a life in prison sentence attached. And these people are trying to confuse people by making the child protection issue the main issue of the bill, when the government will use the bill to go after its political opponents. It's not going to keep kids safe. This government hands kids over to drag queens in libraries. This government wants to mutilate healthy children's sex organs in order for them to, I don't know, kill themselves with MAID later, it seems like. Maybe that's the plan. But this government doesn't have children's best interests at heart. This government wants to censor its citizens. And this liar is trying to, I don't know, negotiate in public with Elon Musk about X. And it's egregious. These people are brazen. I think they're running out of runway. Like, they have to get it off the ground now, because if they don't get it off the ground now, it's not going to fly. But it's not going to fly. Like, somebody responded to this guy, and he says that, Shadow says, Arif, you have pre-crime legislation written to this bill with anonymous reporting and some kind of commission to decide upon the fate of the accused. Life in prison, $70,000 fines. No, this is not constitutional in Canada. You cannot legislate feelings. Sorry, bud. There's a whole lot of concerns and issues with this bill, and so many that I don't think that it has legs. I don't think that even if it got passed through, which it shouldn't pass the House of Commons and it shouldn't pass the Senate, but even if it did, if a rational person looked at it, they would say that this violates the basic laws of this country and it can't come into force. It has to be changed. And then they'll change it and they'll change it and they'll change it. But ultimately, what they're trying to do is silence legal speech. And that's not legal in this country. So they're trying to tie everything people who want to be legally expressing themselves, they're trying to tie all of the topics that they would speak about to terrorism and say they're committing a terrorism now. And that's how they're going to criminalize legal speech. There you go. That's it. CBC Hamilton says Hamilton Police Board member investigated for budget criticism, says he's being silenced. And Tiger says, so no one on council, let alone the police board, can criticize the police budget? Really? That's draconian. Yep. So these people are eating themselves. And I mean, you can't even publicly talk about the police budget. One of Hamilton's police board most outspoken and critical members will be temporarily stepping down as an oversight body investigates a complaint made against him by some of his fellow board members. Cameron Kay, who is also the Ward 2 councillor, said in a statement Monday that the Hamilton Police Services Board, HPSB, launched the complaint with the intention to silence him. I consider the board's actions to be proactive or procedurally unfair and abusive process, biased and personally motivated. Tensions between him and the majority of the board members have flared in recent months around the police budget process, with him publicly calling for more transparency and scrutiny. The complaint filed by the board to the Ontario Civil Police Commission has not been made public. Board Chair Pat Manley said in a statement, the OCPC has instructed her not to say anything publicly about the investigation to ensure that it continues to remain confidential. Yikes, right? So they'll bury you, and they'll silence you. And even if you have legitimate concerns, no, that's a terrorism, sir. That's a hate crime. Speech and children. We have to protect children and the narrative. Vigilant Fox. Now, he gets the name of the bill wrong. He says it's Bill C6. It's actually Bill C63, but that's okay. Vigilant Fox, because people get things wrong sometimes, even when they're doing their best. I try and tell you when I get things wrong. Anyway, the Vigilant Fox says, Trudeau's Canada threatens life sentences for hate. This is not satire. This is real life. 2024, 1984. Proposed Bill C63 Says everyone who commits an offense under this act is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for life. It gets worse. The new bill bribes citizens to snitch on their fellow Canadians. Highwire Talk reported C63 allows someone to make a complaint of discrimination anonymously. If that hateful complaint is found legit, a maximum of $20,000 goes to that person. Think this can't happen? Similar legislation to define and crack down on in-person online hate is being pushed across Europe. Just recently in Belgium, former Flemish parliamentarian Dries van Langenhoeve was sentenced to 1 year in prison. The reason for this sentence was for sharing supposedly racist memes in a photo chat, in a private group chat, watch the full segment below. I've got that story as well coming up just in this segment here, so we'll look at that in a minute. Arif again says online hate crime rose 130% because they redefined what online hate was, and there were no crimes. I don't think anybody's been arrested for anything, and I would challenge the minister for that statement, because they redefined what online hate was, and maybe it's gone up by 130% based on this redefinition. But if there was a crime, then I would imagine that they would have arrested people for it, right? So there's no crime. There are maybe increased incidents of these things, but you can't call that online hate, or online hate crimes, excuse me. It's time to act, he says. Get the facts on our plan to combat hate in Canada. They are trying to crack down on legal speech, and they're trying to do it through conflating terrorist acts with topics of free speech that people like me might engage in. Like, that man can't be a woman, or that vaccine is a gene therapy, something like that, that's hate. That's hate. Get him in prison forever, right? He's never allowed to have an internet connection again. This is weak. This seems really weak to me. There's 11 seconds. It's cut right off. He's not talking about C63. When was this taken? I don't know. There's a whole bunch of issues here. It was published yesterday by Rebel News, 2:30 in the afternoon. 11-second clip of Poilievre, saying he's going to repeal Bill C11, one of the censorship bills. And what about C63? Will he repeal that too? I mean, you could mention it. Here we go.
Excellent. We're going to bring it home. We're going to bring home our freedom again. We will repeal liberal censorship law C11.
Cut right there. Cut it right there. That's good enough. That's all we need. Nothing else. This is interesting. Jason Levine, and he was covering the Coots guys. He blocked me for asking him why he has MP in his name, but he's not an MP. I thought that was weird. I asked him because other people were asking him, and he blocked me. And then I was blocked for 6 months, and then he called me out for blocking him, because I was like, well, if I can't access your post, then I'm going to block in like. And I posted something that he wanted to see, and he said, this is the problem with Canada. I was like, get bent, buddy. Anyway, regardless of all of that, he does a lot of work for the Coots guys, but I have issues with how he was reporting with it, because it was making him the center of the whole thing. And a whole bunch of people were calling him out, and he was acting very strangely. Regardless, he says, I just submitted my nomination for Ottawa Police Service Detective Helen Gress for Police Hero Honor Roll Award. So there you go. She was nominated. Apparently, these guys, there's a group of bloggers who've been really focused on the Coots 4, and they have taken up Gress's cause as well, I guess. And so they've written step-by-step instructions on how to nominate her for this honor roll award. And so she's been nominated by at least 100 people, and she's not on the page to vote for her to win the award. And so VBZ says, hey, Ottawa Police, why isn't Detective Gress, who's been nominated by over 100 citizens, on the nominating page? Great question. Really, really good question. And why is that happening? It's censorship. It's a different form of censorship. It's not online censorship, but it is a way to shape the narrative, and it is being done by police forces. So that is very concerning. They don't work for us. They don't work for us. They don't work for you. We in Canada think that the police are there to be helpers. They work for our political class, the leadership class. They don't work for us. Thomas says the so-called TikTok ban. So in Canada, they're trying to criminalize speech. In the United States, they're trying to just take away the property from the people who own it, and silence websites. And they're using lies about Elon Musk and X to push this through. They're probably going to get this through. Like, C63 is probably going to pass. This is probably going to pass. We have to get to a point where people stand up and say no. And I guess we're not there yet, but this is going to pass. Okay. Remember when they tried the Ministry of Truth and they appointed the person and then everybody laughed at them? They outlined so many issues with the idea that they had to walk it back. So it'll pass. And then people will stand up and say, this is ridiculous. And then maybe they'll walk it back. Right. But in Canada, it's going to do damage. It's going to do damage. The so-called TikTok ban in the United States is a Trojan horse. The president will be given powers to ban website, not just apps. The person breaking the new laws deemed to be the U.S. or offshore internet hosting service or app store, not the foreign adversary. So the way they're going after it, they're going after people who want to remain in people's good books. And if you don't do what we're telling you, you're going to be blacklisted from whatever. You're going to not be able to make money. And so that's very motivating. Very, very motivating indeed, right? People will do what they're told. Eva is highlighting this, and I already teased about this, but former Flemish parliamentarian Dries van Langenhove, and there's his Twitter account, has just been sentenced to 1 year in prison because supposedly racist memes were shared in a private group chat he was part of. This is the absolute state of freedom of speech in Europe. They're jailing patriotic dissidents. Next time they'll do this to me or you or anyone who goes against the globalist regime. I'm seriously lost for words here. This is full-blown tyranny, and we should fight it with all our might. People don't believe it yet. They don't believe it yet. They watched Alex Jones. They watched Chris Sky. They watched Donald Trump. They've watched all sorts of stuff. They still don't believe this is happening. I don't know why they don't believe it, but they don't believe it. And they just don't believe it. It's here. They want to ban speech that says Canadian oil and gas is beneficial. They want to make that a hate crime? Make life in prison for that too? Why not, right? It's speech that's bad that the government doesn't want. You naughty children, you. Adam Olson, who's a BC Green, right? He's a BC Green Party guy. And he says, when we learned how harmful tobacco was to our health, we banned tobacco ads. We should do the same for oil and gas ads because it's unhealthy for people and the planet. It's unhealthy to not have power. Here is this imbecile.
My question and question period today was about false or misleading statements, i.e. this garbage that you're seeing everywhere. It's on the sides of our buses. You can see it on billboards. I think there's 2 or 3 of them just in my riding on Sayout First Nation. But basically talking about how BC methane is different than other methane. That it's going to be actually part of reducing global emissions. See, it's this kind of factless advertising that I was asking about in question period. Charlie Angus, the federal NDP MP, has a bill going before the federal House as well. So I was asking his BC NDP counterparts what they thought about it. Was the worst answer, perhaps, that I've received in question period. Minister Heyman completely did not address the issue of advertising, and basically suggested that the way to deal with false or misleading advertising would be for government to advertise their facts. And so this isn't about making sure that we have...
I don't want to tell a more compelling story. I want to silence my competition. Okay? Thank you very much. Honestly, it's interesting. Somebody said, what is history but a story agreed upon? Right? And I think that they're just trying to change the story. While we still remember the old story, they're just trying to change the story. Now we're supposed to believe that oil and gas is bad and harmful. Electricity comes from magic, I guess, somewhere magical. The sun, but it's not reliable, or wind turbines, but they're not reliable. So all of the real stuff we're supposed to ignore. Ignore that brownout, ignore that blackout. That's not actually happening. That's just part and parcel of our new green utopia, right? And we just have to believe everything they say, because anything they disagree with is silenced. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. That's how they want leadership. That's how much power they want. It's incredible. Andrew Fury, who is the Premier for Newfoundland, he sent a message to Justin Trudeau along with 7 premiers, and he says, I continue to stand up for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians against the federal carbon tax. I'm now asking Ottawa to pause its planned increase to the carbon tax set for April 1st, as the high cost of living is enough of a burden on families. The full letter is here. Now, I would really like it, and I haven't read the letter yet, so I could be wrong. I'll read it right after I say what I'm going to say. I would really like it if there was a so what. You need a carrot and a stick. a little bit. Like, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this. Or if you don't do this, we're going to stop sending it in, or whatever it is. Like, there has to be some kind of, if you don't do this, there's going to be a consequence. The consequences imply that you're going to lose the election, the next election. But you can't make that threat as somebody who's not in charge of whether they're going to win or lose the next election, right? So it's a poor threat, but you can, as premier, not remit the taxes, make them go to court, say, we're not going to do that. We're not doing it, and we're not doing it. There was no, if you do this, if you continue good, or if you go forward with this, I'm going to do X. There was not anything like that in the letter. So, I mean, it's an effective letter, I guess. It's fine. He's talking about how difficult things already are. And, carbon tax going up by 25% is going to make things more difficult, so on and so forth. True. Doug Ford weighs into, he didn't bother writing the letter. He's just riding the coattails of Andrew Furey's letter. He said, yeah, what Andrew said. Me too. Doug Ford says, I couldn't agree more with Premier Furey. Andrew, people across Canada are hurting right now from the high cost of living. The federal government needs to put a stop to the carbon tax. The federal government is actively working against Canadians on multiple levels. And Doug Ford asking, please, sir, we just want some more of our own money, is not going to work. It's just not going to work. And maybe I'm pessimistic. I would prefer a premier who had balls. I would prefer a premier who said no to stupid increases. I would prefer a premier who's willing to fight for his citizens. I would prefer a premier who actually stopped the gender ideology nonsense and the racist garbage that's been ubiquitous in Canada. The racist garbage being segregated dances, segregated academic support for Black-only kids in Guelph. GCVI is running Black student-only dances and Black student-only academic support. The Black student-only academic support is board-wide. Leachy knows about it. Ford knows about it. I've emailed them personally. I've laid it out. I've done videos. They can't not know about it, right? I've done multiple, and I've seen other people talking about it too, and sending them stuff and their own stuff in other places, in other cities, other jurisdictions that's happening that's racist as well. They don't care. They don't give a shit. They do not care. And they're pretending that they care now. Oh, people are struggling. Maybe you should mention that immigration's a problem, Doug, right? Maybe you should speak up. I have zero tolerance for people who lie to constituents to get into political office. And it seems like Doug Ford is a liberal running the PC party in Ontario. I really would like to see another conservative party that's actually conservative and that'll tell Justin Trudeau to pound sand. And that would tell any federal government to pound sand. Get out of the provincial jurisdiction of healthcare. Get out of the provincial jurisdiction of municipalities. I would prevent any mayor from having any kind of international meetings or anything like that. If a mayor goes to an international meeting, then they're stripped of their mayoral powers and removed. Done. You don't have negotiation powers with foreign agents. I don't care what you think climate change is. Sit down and do what your constituents in your city want. Period. That's your job. Idiots. These people are not doing their job and they're walking around pretending like they are. And it's very, very frustrating. Cat Canada says 7 out of 10 premiers issued a statement addressed to Trudeau opposing his carbon tax hike. There's a cost of living crisis. I'll show you right now just because I think that it's important. This is a guy this is Bob Zimmer from Nunavut, I think. And he says, these are unbelievable food prices. And yeah, this is what's going on. So here's Bob, and I'll read out the prices because it's all just videos. He says,
hey everybody, Bob Zimmer in Cambridge Bay, Nunavut today. Going to show you some of the challenges around affordability in our northern communities. Here are some local food prices.
Chapman's 4-liter ice cream, $29.59. Vanilla. Beef wieners, $18.99. Pack of 4. Bacon, Harvest Bacon, 1 kilogram of bacon, $41. 1.3 kilogram of M&Ms, $40, $39.59. Smucker's Strawberry Jam, $8.29. Old Dutch Ketchup, potato chips, $8. Blueberries, $10.99 for a lot, I guess. Baking soda, $6.19 for 500 grams of baking soda. Kraft peanut butter, I don't know how much it is, $14.99. Kilogram. Sorry, it was turned. It's a kilogram of peanut butter.
Everybody.
So there's an affordability crisis, and we just need to increase the carbon tax for reasons. Not going to work out. Here, CTV News says the plan is working. The plan is working. It's working. Champagne says as more premiers urge pause to carbon tax hike, it's working, is it? Well, how many CO2, how many pounds of CO2 has the carbon tax removed? Oh, I plumb forgot. We don't measure. Laurie Goldstein didn't forget. Canada 24, he says, a government that doesn't measure how its carbon tax reduces greenhouse gas emissions says its carbon tax is working to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Wah, wah. Like I'm sure there's a couple of different jingles I could play that would go along with that. CCM, this is a Spencer Fernando thing, but this is going back in time to remind us a month and a half ago, right? Just a short time ago, we learned that the government, Stephen Guilbeault admits, the government doesn't measure emission reductions from the carbon tax. Canadians are getting screwed over. Absolutely. We are being told, oh, it's working, but they can't know because they don't measure it. The plan is working, Champagne says. And so it says, as yet another provincial leader calls on the Trudeau government to pause next month's carbon tax hike. Federal Industry Minister Francois Philippe Champagne says that the plan is working on efforts to price pollution. Bull poop. He's a liar. He's a liar. The coming almost 25% increase in the federal carbon tax is causing understandable worry, the letter reads. I respectfully request that you consider pausing the implementation, at least until inflation stabilizes. It won't stabilize as we continue to increase the carbon tax. At least until inflation stabilizes, interest rates lower, and relative economic pressure on the cost of living sufficiently cool. In an appearance on CTV News channel Power Play with host Vasi Kapoulis Tuesday afternoon, Champagne said he hears Fury's voice on the issue, but that putting a price on pollution is the right thing to do. This is an investment in the future. He says the plan is working. It's going to bring more money in the pockets of Canadians, and we're going to continue to do that. He's advocating for communism. That's it. NDP say corporate greed is harming kids. Grocery profits are breaking records. It's the grocery profits. It's not the carbon tax that Jagmeet Singh is propping up and allowing to continue. And he says Pierre Poilievre, food bank usage hits crisis levels. Jagmeet Singh has been allowing this government's policy to be pushed forward with no oversight. It's a bad policy run by a person who doesn't have the economic ability, and we don't have a government that's willing to stop it. It's incredible. And he's trying to blame food bank usage on Pierre Poilievre. He says, and Pierre Poilievre voted against the National School Food Program to protect the profits of CEOs that donate to his party. It's cruel, and I'm fighting back. Jagmeet Singh is, piece of work. There are other things that I could say about him, but it wouldn't be appropriate. Steve is responding to Jonathan Wilkinson. Wilkinson is the Minister of Energy and Resources, and he says the Canada carbon rebate is going up, and Pierre Poilievre wants to rob you of it. The government is taking your tax dollars to redistribute them through this carbon tax scheme, and they're claiming that Pierre Poilievre is going to steal money from you by returning your tax dollars to you and not running this scheme. They're liars. They are brazen liars. They're looking at you directly in the eye and peeing on your foot and telling you that it's just raining on your foot. That'd be an uncomfortable situation to be standing in, but that's what they're doing. It's incredible and brazen, like it out and urinating on your foot, and like they're shaking your hand and saying it's raining. Isn't this weather just awful? The Great Alberta Radio Show says another Liberal who's a traitor to all Canadians, Jonathan here, caters to terrorists, rapists, drug cartels, and WEF destroying our country. He praised a Waffen SS. Remember that, folks? Yep, that was weird. And we should really talk about the history of World War II and the reimagining of the history of World War II based on manipulating the public into believing one thing when something completely different is true. Reliable Energy says at this moment and current capabilities, Alberta would need 163 more Brazeau-sized dams, or 5,598 more wind turbines, or 79,953 more acres of solar panels, or 200,008. No, 200,000, 5,000, 20,000. I'm getting this terribly wrong. There's usually a chevron. Anyway, a whole bunch of NHL ice surfaces to replace all the power that carbon is is currently giving to Alberta. And it's not possible. Paying a carbon tax, all it does is make things more expensive. These people are lying to us about everything. Here is the housing stuff. The housing stuff is a pretty crazy thing. Chrystia Freeland is giving interviews, and apparently, if you live in the prairies, you just can't wait to move to BC. Here we go.
For prairie people, the real life version of dying and going to heaven is to move to BC.
I know some prairie people. I know some people who live in Alberta, and I know some people who live in Saskatchewan, and I don't talk to them very often, but I'm pretty confident that they don't want to move to BC, period. And here's BC Perspective says, this wretched woman is a scar on the fabric of Canada. This is the BC Miss Freeland is referring to as heaven. Here's 10 cities, right? 10 cities and graffiti everywhere, drugs everywhere, zombies everywhere, just an unbelievable situation of bad policy being completely ignored for political purposes. And it's not even really political gain. Like, do you want to rule over the ashes of Canada? Here's Chrystia I would rule over the ashes of Canada just to make it the place that I remember from my youth. Holy smokeronis, because you could do it relatively fast too. Chrystia Freeland says, we're building more homes faster right across the country, and it was great to visit one new example in Victoria, BC, with beautiful new apartments for low and middle income Canadians. Now, I'll just prep you on how much low and middle income Canadians have to pay to live in this apartment building that she's at. Kirk says, today the finance minister toured an apartment building built with the help of a government program, touting it as a successful project for low and middle income Canadians. The price is starting at no bedroom, 330 square foot shipbox, $1,680 a month, no bedroom. No bedroom, a little bigger, 480 shipbox, $1,825 a month. One bedroom, 630 square foot for $2,615 a month. Two bedroom, 816 square feet, $3,300 a month. Not only no low income Canadian can afford to live here, but an average income earner in Victoria, British Columbia will have to spend 45% of their after-tax income to live in a studio they wouldn't be able to afford a bedroom. To afford a two-bedroom, to be able to afford two bedrooms, a person would have to be a top earner. Freeland is alarmingly disconnected from what is happening in Canada. This is the Liberal financing impoverishment of Canadians and bragging about it. And they're not out of touch. Their goal, because I used to say they're out of touch, and people in the comments were like, dude, they're not out of touch. They're doing this on purpose. And they're doing this on purpose. They're doing it on purpose. It's not out of touch. They're saying this is the quality of life you deserve. This is what you deserve, Canada. And I'm saying that we could fix this. We could fix this by kicking these criminals out and the rest of the criminals out, regardless of which ideology they align with, Khalistani or tiny little bald hats or whatever. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're working against Canada, out. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful